Thank you very much, Mr. Michael Porter, Vivek, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Porter, on behalf of the Government of India and all of us for coming to India and enlightening us with your theories, the theories of competitiveness, the theories of cooperation, and in a sense, the theory of bringing compassion along with competitiveness and competition into the workings of business, into the workings of government. In fact, it's very appropriate that we are having this discussion when we celebrate 200 years of Ricardo first talking about his theory of competitive advantages of industries, of nations. Ricardo had, of course, floated the idea. I think Dr. Porter fine-tuned it to a very cogent and a very viable model on which today industry, on which nations can progress, can plan their future, and can have a compassionate bent of mind, particularly when Dr. Porter talks about social justice and the best and most effective use of corporate social responsibility, which is not only about something you do at 2% or 3% of your profits, but it's something you do in your very business itself. I was reading some news about your talks in Mumbai, the maximum city from where I hail, which is also the business capital of India, and was delighted to hear some of your views because they resonate very well with the objectives and the approach of the new government in India, in the center, in many states. Prime Minister Modi has introduced the concept of cooperative and collaborative federalism, particularly in the union of states that we have, and in a polity which is marred by several ideologies. It's not one political or two political parties, but here we have a multitude of political parties in coalition in many states, working with different thoughts, different thought processes, but to bring all of them back into one agenda, the national agenda, I think has been the hallmark of this government. The most recent goods and services tax, the GST reform, is an example where Prime Minister Modi was able to bring together all different viewpoints on one page. Viewpoints as starkly contrasting as a communist to a capitalist viewpoint. And in that sense, I would like to limit myself to what the thinking of this government is and how I believe it resonates very well with the theories that Dr. Porter has been articulating, also teaching at the Harvard Business School, where I had the privilege of starting a program but not finishing it. But as they said last year when my son was graduating from Harvard, the lead speaker had mentioned that all of those who were graduating from Harvard were the unfortunate lot, because all those who didn't graduate from Harvard probably did better in life than actually completing the program there. And we have enough examples of that going around. But this government, in some sense, has focused on business principles in its day-to-day working to see how we can bring about reform in this country, how we can transform the economy, transform the way the country works. And I'm delighted to share with you, Dr. Porter, and with the esteemed audience, with some small examples, how this government's work has been oriented towards creating a long-term framework in which this country can develop, can grow faster than any other country, which you also articulated yesterday in Mumbai, and where that growth can be sustainable, where that growth can be with sustainable lifestyles, where that growth can be with compassion towards the lesser privileged sections of society. The end objective can never be met, and as Dr. Porter yesterday said, that things are better but not good. And I'm delighted you said that, Dr. Porter, because the day we start thinking that things are good, I think that will be the end of all thinking, all innovation, all further improvements to the working of the government. And I think it's important that we continuously be in a state of flux, in a journey towards a better tomorrow. And I would think getting better than what we were is going to be the way forward. The good will always remain a long way ahead, because the objective and the style of this government has been to set very aggressive goals, very large targets, look at things to scale, do your programs skillfully, and end of the day, there's a small saying in Hindi, Dr. Porter, it could also be looked at in a very derogative sense. It's called Sabse Bada Rupaiya. The most important thing, end of the day, is economics, is money. Now, one can look at it in a very wrong meaning, but I think the sense that I take out of this is that end of the day, all that we do, when measured in economic terms, should result in good for the people of India, should result in good for all stakeholders, and in that, being cooperative and collaborative certainly can be the difference between success and failure. This government came in when there was a period of lethargy, there was a despondency about India. We had investments not taking shape, we had international investors concerned about the way things were shaping up. And at that point of time, Prime Minister Modi brought into the Indian way of thinking, in the Indian government's way of working, very bold and decisive leadership. We have not fought shy from biting the bullet, taking very aggressive pro-reform measures. In fact, this must be the only government which on the floor of the House said that being pro-business is not being anti-poor. When you want to be pro-poor, you have to be pro-business, because it's the combination of good business practices which will ultimately help India get out of the poverty trap. Of course, all our working has focused on the management principles of transparency, the management principles of outcomes, not outlays, the typical thinking of government, what we are spending, what will be the budget outlay. We have focused our energies to try and get outcomes and look at the outcomes, what every one of our programs, every one of the government's initiatives will result in, coupled with very time-bound execution. Any project that's taken up is taken up with a commitment to execute it at scale in a time-bound manner. I'll illustrate with an example. If you look at the digital fiber optic setup in the country, now one may argue, as Singularity does, that whether 10 years down the line this will be necessary at all. But today we need to get the internet to every nook and corner and village in the country. And therefore, when we came in, and there were only 358 kilometers of digital fiber optic, Prime Minister Modi decided that this has to just expand to the length and breadth of the country. And in less than 3 years, we have expanded to 200,000 kilometers from barely 358 kilometers 3 years ago. When we looked at energy efficiency and saw the game-changing potential that it had, the country decided we will move to LED lighting, and in a span of 5 years, make India 100% LED. And Dr. Porter, you'll be happy to know, we've almost achieved 50% of our target in the first 2 years, so that by 2019-20, once India converts to LED for its lighting needs across the country, we would be saving $6.5 billion in consumer electricity bills annually, not to talk about the 80 million tons of carbon dioxide that we would be reducing every year, and the 112 billion units of electricity, the 112 billion kilowatt hour of power that we would be saving annually. On a similar streak, when it came to electrification of the country, and I believe you spoke about it yesterday also, Prime Minister Modi was disturbed that 7 decades after independence, we still have 18,500 villages which have no access to electricity. Again, not to speak about the 250 million households Out of the 250 million households, the almost 45 million households which were not yet connected to electricity. This 45 million households, probably relating to 200 million people, was a matter of concern. It was a matter of, I would say, compassion for all Indians, because every child in those homes deprived of electricity was remaining outside the growth, outside the prosperity that the rest of the nation was enjoying. We have taken that up on mission mode. Every part of India, every village in India will be blessed with electricity before the end of this calendar. And we are confident that while the target was 2022, to do what the country took 70 years not to do, we are hopeful that we should be able to do it in the next 2.5 years. Similarly, partnership among stakeholders, the federal system, the cooperation and collaboration of states. As I said, the GST is one example, but on several issues, we have been able to bring consensus amongst policymakers. We have been able to change the paradigm to working together and working in a spirit of helping the stakeholders, helping the people of India look for a better and brighter tomorrow. Red tapeism, the bureaucracy is certainly looking at things in a different manner than what I think we inherited 3 years ago. In fact, in my own ministries, one of the cardinal principles is that nobody is allowed to tell me how things were done 3 years ago. We are looking at seeing what can be the changing paradigm of working as we go forward with a great deal of focus on technology. A simple thing like metering of electricity connections. We are looking at changing all meters in the country to smart meters so that we can truly have a system where people can have confidence in the electricity infrastructure, can have confidence in the bills that they pay. In a way, the entire framework of governance, if I may submit, is focused towards creating a foundation, a framework of good governance, which will outlast the present or any government, and for decades will help India to grow sustainably. Our large push on renewable energy is an example of the government's sensitivity to the challenge of climate change internationally, to the concerns of the world about the future of our planet. And in some sense, we are only doing what our ancestors said, that this generation has to be a trustee of the world that we inherited. And we are bound to leave behind a better world than the one we inherited as we pass on the baton to the next generation. To my mind, this has been a 3-year saga of creating probably one of the most dynamic and forward-looking governance infrastructure that the nation has seen over many years. But we are certainly only in a journey. It's 3 years along the journey. We look to benefit from the wise sage and counsel and advice of transformational leaders like yourself, Dr. Porter. We believe in learning from the best practices worldwide. We believe your theories of cooperation, competition, and compassion will help India go to the next level of development in a far more organized, far more structured manner, leading to a better quality of life for the billion-plus people in India. India is at the cusp of that transformational journey which the people of India were waiting for many years. And I'm sure your own experiences, your own learnings, and your own teachings over the last several years will help all of us policymakers, amongst politicians, amongst the bureaucracy, and the industry partners, learn from you and take the agenda forward in a more cogent and better manner. Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Porter, for being with us in India. I'm also eagerly looking forward to hearing you later in the evening, and will certainly look to engage with you to see how we, each one of us, can do our job better in the years to come. Thank you very much, Dr. Puri.